Welcome to Manga Historian's Complete Story Series. Today we're going to be finishing up Berserk Golden Age. This is going to be a shorter video because this is how we're going to wrap up the Golden Age. Immediately following this, next week will be the beginning of the next arc, Conviction, which basically takes place back in the current days. So don't forget to stick around and check that out. When we last left off, Zod and the Skull Knight were discussing what was going on, and Zod was amazed at the humans that could survive the eclipse. But Guts, Casca, and the Skull Knight had other plans. It's time to pick up where we left off in the eclipse. Guts charges off into a field to find the Skull Knight once more, and he's told that the demons of hell will not rest until they take his blood because Griffith offered it. So Guts continues to fight the spirits around him, and soon they begin to fade, and the Skull Knight notices that they are seeking out the other who escaped with the brand. Guts jumps in the back of the Skull Knight's horse, and he tells Guts that this is the second time that he has given him a ride. Guts asks what does he mean second, and the Skull Knight explains that he was the one who rescued him and Casca from the eclipse. He goes on to mention that he had a chance to meet their friend who had with him the fairy dust that kept them alive. Guts continues to ask, what about this fairy dust? And the Skull Knight tells him that fairy dust is the greatest medicine and does not normally come into human hands. Sometimes the fairies become careless and allow themselves to be seen by humans, and one day this may happen to him as well. Guts speaks of Casca standing out in the field while the spirits surround her. Guts jumps down and begins to run, but the Skull Knight tells him to wait. Even though those evil spirits are surrounding her, they can do her no harm, which is rather strange. However, Guts doesn't stop and he keeps running up the hill until he finds Casca. Guts asks what's wrong and Casca begins to sweat and grab her stomach in pain. She falls to her knees and Guts notices blood coming out from underneath her clothes, and then she screams out in pain. At that moment, a small premature fetus falls to the ground covered in her blood. Guts gets ready to stomp on it, calling it a hellspawn, but before he can, Casca shields the baby. Guts demands to know why she's protecting it, and the Skull Knight says that simply because it is her child. As he turns back to listen, the Skull Knight says that the woman was with child. However, it has become evil, perhaps by the work of the new God Hand. That is, while being born, it accepted an evil nature and chose to be cursed. They should put the infant down because as long as it exists, it'll bring to them nothing but grief and trouble. But before Guts can do anything, it begins to crawl up, and Casca holds it close to her chest. With hatred flowing, Guts reaches down and grabs the fetus from her arms. As he stares at it, it continues to stare back, and Casca screams, biting Guts' arm to let it go. As the sun begins to rise, the light begins to shine down on the fetus, and soon it begins to fade, and once it completely disappears, Casca screams. The Skull Knight tells him that the child has not returned to the dust, but it will appear before them again. An evil child yearns for its parents. Off in the distance though, Rickard and Erica run over to them calling out. Guts turns back to the Skull Knight and he sees him leaving. But before leaving, the Skull Knight says that they will probably meet again. His heart may be good, but the path he's going to walk will be dark. So until then, have a safe and good journey. Time began to pass, and one day inside of Godu's workshop, Erica sneaks in grabbing a key hanging from the wall. She turns back outside, pulling Rickard with her, but before he can ask what she's doing, she shushes him, telling him to follow. Around the back is a locked shed, and as Erica pulls off the lock, the door swings open and she yells, "Ta-da!" Rickard looks in and sees rows and rows of weapons and armor, and Erica says that her dad is known as a blacksmith. He's kind of famous too. So Rickard picks up a small cannon, and she goes on stating that her dad can probably make just about anything they ask for. He's a genius about this stuff, but there is one weapon that catches Rickard's eye. Erica tells him that that's the Dragon Slayer, and Rickard walks over to it as the sword towers over him. Suddenly the two hear Godu saying how long ago he was asked to make a powerful sword strong enough to take down a dragon. Don't ask him how, but he forged it, and it did kill a dragon. Rickard asks what happened next, and Godu tells him, well, they almost hung him for making such a thing. Ever since then, he's lived out here alone, but as of now, he knows not who has the strength to wield it, though he would rather not find out, so it's staying locked up here. Rickard asks if this thing can really kill a dragon, and Godu looks at him and tells him, do not ask about the dragon. Godu then says not to tell their friend about it. He'd probably snatch it up and try to kill dragons. Besides, he's already got so many enemies, he doesn't need the dragons after him. Down in the cave, Guts stands in the water holding his sword and listening. As the water pours from the waterfall, he begins to hear a fish swimming, and as it jumps, Guts swings back, slicing it in two. After cleaning it up, Guts tells Rickard that he'll be leaving tomorrow, so until then, he's going to keep his cave door locked to keep Casca in. Guts heads downstairs with a basket, but Casca stares at him, staring with hate and malice. He sets the basket down, telling her to have some food, but tomorrow, they're going to be having a feast, so she jumps up from her bed and stuffs whatever food she can get into her mouth. Guts eats his food and he thinks about how Casca has not changed since the day that they came there. While Casca begins to eat her soup with nothing but her mouth, she accidentally spills it all over her clothes. Guts runs over, telling her to take the shirt off before she burns herself, but Casca fights back, screaming, and tries to push him away. Through the struggle, the shirt rips and the two of them stare at each other. Guts climbs onto the bed and he leans in to kiss her, but Casca pushes him away and runs to the cave door, screaming and shaking the door. The next morning, Rickard helps Guts put on his armor and notices that he's got knives across his chest. Guts mentions that Jodu taught him that a long time ago, though they've never really been his style. He thought that he might need them at some point. As Guts stands back up, Erica then asks why all of his clothes are black, and Guts tells her that he'll be fighting in a lot of dark places, fighting darkness itself. Rickard begins to strap something to Guts' arm, and he sees a fake arm. Rickard tells him that it is a magnet in the palm so that he can hold onto a sword, and that there's also something else that him and Erica helped set up. He then hands him a crossbow that attaches to the arm, and Guts aims it towards the rocks outside. Before he can fire, Godu appears in the doorway asking if Guts is even still here. After looking at several of his products on Guts, he says that it seems that he helped himself to his tools. Guts tells him that he's a mercenary, not a thief, but Godu pulls out a sword and says that this will be his final farewell gift, so he better not turn it down. Even though he doesn't like to boast about it still, this sword was something else. Guts takes the sword, and he swings it down, cutting both the sword and the tip of the anvil off. But before Guts can even say anything, the brand on his neck begins to bleed. And then a voice tells him that he's finally found him. Everyone looks back to see a short, stocky man, and he tells them that there are leftovers here. Guts tells everyone to get back, this one will be his. As everyone watches, the small man begins to grow, sprouting a tail and turning into a hulking beast. Godu asks, what is this? And Guts smiles, telling him he'll be the first that he kills. The rage begins to take over and Guts charges forward, slashing away at the beast's two faces. The giant beast falls back and Godu asks, what the hell is that? And Guts smiles, stating that he will hunt the strongest prey. The beast leans back and Guts swings away, cutting off an arm. As the beast continues to get back up, Guts swings for a third time right down the middle. And though he cut through the beast's stomach, he notices the sword had broken. The beast uses its insides and grabs Guts, throwing him into the storage shed. He then starts to walk over, so Guts tries to get back up on his feet, and he tells himself it can't end this way. This is even more of a reason for him to survive. Rickard shouts to use the fake hand, point it, and pull out the handle. So the beast reaches out and the mechanical hand drops, reeling a cannon. Guts fires it through the beast's mouth, and the beast stumbles back. And Guts says that's what he's talking about. But the kickback is a bit rough. As he works out his arm, Guts looks back and he sees the Dragon Slayer's sword. Seconds later, Guts calls out to the beast and then tears down the middle of it. The beast is thrown back from the swing and Guts walks off, holding the Dragon Slayer. With one more swing, Guts cuts the beast in half, and as his entrails begin to fall out, Guts holds up the sword, still covered in guts, telling Godu that he should have told him about this thing. Godu stares, asking if he can really wield it. Erica watches and begins to hide behind Rickard, telling Guts looks all scary suddenly. The sword is called the Dragon Slayer because no human hands could even wield it. And even with that massive sword, how could someone even defeat a dragon with it? Once the fight is over, Guts tells Rickard not to tell Casca about anything. Rickard begs Guts to stay and not leave Casca behind. The band of Hawks are. But Guts tells him the band of Hawks aren't over. They're still here and the fight is far from over. They're the generals now, so it's their job to protect Casca. He's the raiding party, remember? He'll go destroy the enemy camp. And as Guts walks off, he thinks to himself that revenge and war might be enough reason to press on. For now, he is alone, and all that is with him is the Black Berserker Rage. The only thing that will keep him on his feet as he heads towards him. And that concludes the Golden Age. We are now prepared to move into the next story arc. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. We are going to go back to the current time where the story began before we went back in time to tell the Golden Age. Don't forget to subscribe to Manga Historian to keep up to date on what's going on in Berserk, and I'll see you next time right here.